Right. Let's get started. I'm going to assume that the audio and video is working. I'm going to talk as loudly as I can, so I apologize to those at the front row. So yeah, OpenIndiana. Let's get started. So what is OpenIndiana? Well, it's basically a new operating system based on Solaris, and is essentially a continuation of OpenSolaris. It's built entirely by the community. So although we've had Oracle's help on the mailing lists suggesting how to get the open source software working, it's been primarily built by people sitting in this room and people on the RSC channel that you can see at the moment. We're aiming to be binary and package compatible with the forthcoming Solaris 11 and Solaris 11 Express, which I'll get into in a bit more detail. And we're also aiming for it to be a drop-in replacement that is free for people to use. So OpenIndiana, as I mentioned, is entirely community-based. We're part of the Illumos Foundation legal entity, which I'll get into in a bit more detail. There's currently around 20 or so core contributors working on the project at the moment. We're hoping that that's going to increase after this announcement. The more people that we can get involved, then the better the product will be, and the more useful it will be, and the faster we'll get our development builds out, and the faster we'll get our stable builds out. At the moment, it's being sponsored by Every City Managed Hosting, which is a company I'm involved with. We're just providing servers and bandwidth and hosting and that kind of thing. I'd also like to thank Tom over there, who's doing the live streaming. He's from Portfast and Bogons, who are two very good UK ISPs. So what are the project goals? Well, the main aim is to be 100% free and 100% open source. The 100% open source bit is a bit tricky because of the closed binaries, closed drivers, that kind of nature, but it's still a goal that you want to have, and it's one that we'll be aiming towards. We're not going to be as anal as some other distributions out there like Debian, where we don't ship binary content. We will ship binary content, but as I say, the aim is to be as open source as possible. We're also aiming to provide a stable branch, which it should be perfectly usable in production. And the main thing with our stable branch is that we're going to be providing free security and bug updates for it. Because that's being done by the community, it's going to depend on people watching the mailing list and providing patches and what have you. But it's going to be a lot better than you had with regular OpenSolaris when you didn't pay for a support contract, where essentially if you wanted bug and security fixes, you either had to pay for it or do it yourself, which isn't feasible for a lot of people. As I mentioned, we're aiming to be binary and package compatible. So in theory, you can upgrade from your existing OpenSolaris install to OpenIndiana, which is fantastic, really. We're also aiming to be the de facto OpenSolaris distribution. So there's already distributions out there, Nexenta and Chilix and Belinix and a few others. Our aim is to sort of be the main one that people use, because it's based on OpenSolaris, and because it's going to kind of be a drop-in replacement for Solaris 11. So the current status is pretty good. We delivered our first development build today. It was a very, very close thing. We literally uploaded the ISO to the servers an hour or two ago. We've barely tested it. A few people in the room have potentially installed it. I booted the live CD, and I'll be showing the live CD shortly. There's some embarrassing bloopers, which you'll see, but it does work. It's going to be available via our IPS package repositories, and also available as a downloadable ISO image. The ISO image and the IPS package servers are ready, so at the end of this presentation you'll be able to go away and test it. It is highly experimental. This is our first proper release that we've done built by ourselves. So some of the bloopers you'll see are simply because various files haven't been customized or updated. Some stuff's still missing that needs to be replaced. But as the months go on, our development builds will get better and more refined, and eventually one of these will become our stable release, and you'll be able to use that in production on servers that are doing mission critical things. And that's one of the key goals of this project. A lot of focus for OpenSolaris seemed to be on the desktop, but really OpenSolaris comes into its own on the server with a lot of the server features like Crossbow and Comstar, the networking stack and the iSCSI stack, and ZFS, of course. They're real enterprise features that people really want to have on their servers. So as I mentioned, we've built our first release. It's constructed from the components that Sun and Oracle have made available already as source code. Pretty much all of it's open, probably 90% of it. The bits that are closed are things like the Sun Studio compilers, the make tools, some crypto code in the kernel, the libm math library. Some of this stuff's trivial to replace, and the Illumos project's working on replacing most of it. In fact, they have already replaced a lot of it, including the C library internationalization code. So yeah, it's getting there. For stuff where we don't have the source code and there's no replacement yet, we're using the last binary build that we have available from Sun or Oracle, which is Solaris Nevada build 134, which is approximately 6 months out of date. But the good thing is that a lot of the closed stuff, like the libm library, doesn't get updated very often and can be easily ported from NetBSD or FreeBSD. A lot of people have been asking if OpenIndiana is a fork, and the answer is it's more of a spork. Thanks to the register for coining that one. Oracle are still developing most of it in the open, so a lot of the consolidations like the Sun freeware packages, the Java desktop system, they're just repackaging free open source software, and therefore they've decided to keep that stuff open, and that's what we're building. They have closed the kernel source gate, which is what Illumos are addressing, which I'll get onto. As I mentioned, we're addressing bits we don't have. The other key thing is that makes us more of a spork is that we're going to be enhancing the operating system beyond what Sun and Oracle are providing. One of the things that a lot of Linux people coming to OpenSolaris have a problem with is that a lot of software doesn't compile and just work on Solaris, especially things like FFmpeg or VLC, media stuff. There's a lot of people doing transcoding on servers that just want to be able to, install that from a package manager. So we'll be doing stuff like that, and extending it here and there where it makes sense. And Illumos will also be extending the Illumos kernel. So as I mentioned, we do have a very tight and close relationship to Illumos, very much like the Linux kernel and all the Linux distributions. Illumos will, in time, be providing our kernel and core user land. That's because Oracle has turned off the tap for their kernel. We're no longer getting kernel source updates. The last update they provided was build 147, which is a month or so old now. So this was very recent. Illumos, though, has a lot of talented kernel engineers working on it. So Oracle doing this isn't necessarily a problem. And the other thing is that Oracle have said that they will, at a future date, provide updates and source code drops. So we'll see if that actually happens. We're just not sure. That's to come. The other key thing that Illumos is doing, which I mentioned, is replacing all the closed code, and that's really where Illumos comes into its own. It's under heavy development, so a lot of stuff's being ripped out, closed stuff's being ripped out, open source stuff's going in, bugs are being found. So for our first couple of releases, we might not necessarily provide Illumos as the default. What we do want to do is provide Illumos as a very easy package image update, so that you can try Illumos out if you want to see what stuff you've got that breaks on Illumos, and you can file bugs and we can get stuff fixed. Some of the key things where you might find problems at the moment is the internationalization, where that's being ripped out and rewritten, and some of the locales are missing. But this is all very recent, and stuff will be completed pretty quickly, hopefully. So as I mentioned, our first build doesn't use Lumos. Provide it later. As I mentioned, we're part of the Lumos Foundation, which means we're a sub-project, if you will. Lumos is the legal entity. It's based in the States. It means OpenIndiana will be subject to American cryptography export laws. And that might sound like a bad thing, but actually it's a good thing, because the UK crypto export laws are a bit iffy, apparently. So we're quite happy with the arrangement there. It's also probably going to be the focus for a lot of Open Solaris projects to kind of become sub-projects of Lumos. And the key thing behind it is that as a community we're stronger together, and a Lumos Foundation makes sense for that to be the focal point, especially as there's other distributions that are going to be using Lumos, such as Nexenta and Shillix. In fact, Shillix already, if you download that today, that is using the Lumos core. So, one of the main questions is, why are we doing OpenIndiana? Why would you want to use it? And it's very easy to answer. So going back a little bit, Solaris 10 was made available by Sun to use free of charge in production. All you had to do was download it and fill in a form which gave you an entitlement. That entitlement let you use that download on as many servers as you specified, free of charge. Sun also provided free security patches, so you could, using their bizarre patching tools, gain access to the security patches. And lots of people started using it. My own company certainly deployed Solaris 10 whole scale. With security patches, it's fine in production. You don't hit any of the bugs. It's fine. OpenSolaris has also been available free of charge since it was released. It hasn't provided security updates for free in the same way that Solaris 10 did, but you could just update to the latest dev build to kind of get them. You could also get a support contract for it, and support contracts on Solaris 10 as well were reasonably cost effective. But when time started to get tight, just before the Oracle takeover, probably 6 months before the Oracle takeover, they turned off the tap to the free security patches, which for a lot of people was a bit of a kick in the backside. But you could still buy a support contract on reasonable terms if you were using, IBM or HP or Dell hardware. Then after Oracle bought Sun, the dev update stopped to OpenSolaris. Things started to look a bit kind of like they were going downhill. Oracle then changed the Solaris 10 license so that it's no longer free for use in production. That's a relatively recent change. You have to basically, the entitlement allows you to use it for development purposes, for testing purposes, but no other use. So you can't use Solaris 10 or 11 in production, and certainly you'd need to buy a support contract to get the security updates anyway. And the new Solaris support contracts are quite expensive compared to the ones that were available under Sun. With Sun, you could literally just get a Solaris support contract without having to cover the hardware. A lot of Oracle's support plans are based on hardware plus software. So, what are the options? Well, you can pay Oracle, and a lot of people will and probably should because they can afford to do so. But if you can't afford to pay or don't want to pay, then you have OpenIndiana, and once their stable release comes out, it should be a pretty good viable option for a lot of people. We're not aiming to compete directly with Oracle because their focus seems to be enterprises who want to pay for support, so that's fine, and we'll cater for the tail end of the market who are used to Linux, which is completely free. Right now, anyone can download CentOS, which is based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux, install it, get security updates. That's kind of similar to what we're doing here. So, this is our first release, and it is experimental, and there are a few bloopers. as a result. The reason for that is that we set an ambitious release date and we've stuck to it. So people have been working incredibly hard for the last couple of months, and especially over the last couple of days, getting this built and shipped, including some people who have stayed up all night doing so. There will be bugs. We're not even sure what the bugs will be, but when you find them, report them, we will fix them. But thanks to OpenSolaris' boot environments, you can just create a new boot environment, update it, reboot into it. If it doesn't work for you, go back to the old one. So really, you've got no excuses for not trying it. Just give it a go. It shouldn't trash your Z pool. It shouldn't. A few things are missing. Some of these are because they were yanked from the source tree, or if they haven't been yanked from the source tree, they've been end-of-lifed. For example, the XVM project, Oracle already had a VM product, so XVM is no longer being developed. Illumos is investigating resurrecting XVM, but it would require Xen kernel developers. So if any of you know any disenfranchised Xen developers who might not necessarily be too happy with Linux moving to KVM, OpenSolaris would love to have you. OpenIndiana and Illumos, rather. Linux branded zones have also kind of been yanked. Illumos are not really looking forward to the looking after it, but potentially they could be brought back without too much hassle. Something some people have been asking is, can Oracle shut us down? And the answer is not really. Although they own the copyright to most of the stuff they've written, they licensed it under an open source license. The stuff that is binary, they released under a license that allows us to redistribute it. So there's not much they can do, and I don't think they'd really want to either, because we don't, as I say, really compete with them. Oracle could, if they wanted, close more source gates, like the Sun Freeware or the Java Desktop system. We don't think they will, because they're already based on free open source software. It doesn't make sense for them to close that off. And if they did, then really it's not a huge maintenance nightmare for the project. In fact, we might even be able to keep a lot of this stuff more up to date, perhaps, than Oracle did, because we'll be able to engage with the open source community a bit more, which perhaps was a bit harder for the people in Sun and Oracle. We're hoping to get other projects, more involved and more using OpenIndiana. So that covers the bulk of it. So I figured there'd be loads of questions, especially via IRC or via the audience. So I'm going to take the first set of questions from the audience. If there are any? Yeah.
So it's been a small, small or biggest group working on this. Now it's released. It's always been a fear over the years that they said that most of the work that's done in open source is done by Sun developers. Is there people out there which can help develop and fix bugs?
Okay, the question, just in case it wasn't heard, is I guess, is the community big enough to support this and fix the bugs?
Yeah.
First, if because Sun was doing all the work. As I mentioned, we are building what Oracle are providing, and if that continues, our team can be relatively small. You're talking 5 to 10 core contributors is enough to build this thing going forward. That's not enough, really. We want more than that. We want to extend the operating system. But if Oracle did close off the source gates, then our team would need to expand. But the work would be easy. To update a bit of software like wget, you're literally bumping the version number in the spec file, doing a rebuild. Stuff like GNOME, it's a bit trickier, a lot of dependencies, but it's not super hard. The hard bits are going to be things like the Xorg server, the X Windows system. So that a lot of work's done by the Xorg team, in particular people like Alan Coopersmith, who really provide a lot more on top of the stock X server. But the community is up to the challenge. Yep.
Open Solaris was very traditionally a desktop system which was horrendously wrong. Are you going to focus more on the server?
Yep. The question was, Open Solaris seemed to focus on the desktop. What's our focus going to be? And I'm happy to report it's the server. It will work fine on a desktop. I know a lot of people run Open Solaris and Solaris 10 on their desktop. I think they're a little bit mad. They probably have very good reasons for doing so, but really, it makes sense to use proper desktop operating system for that. And OpenIndiana's main focus is going to be on the server. The desktop will continue to run just as the Solaris 11 one will, but really the focus and the bug fixes are going to be going into the server aspect. That's where we feel the most deployments are going to go. It's where we feel the biggest market penetration can be had. There's a lot of people out there running things like CentOS, Ubuntu on their servers. One of my personal goals is to try and convert all of them to using OpenIndiana, because it's such a good server operating system. You've got ZFS for file system requirements. I don't trust my data with anything else these days, having seen ext3 destroy stuff. Servers is really where we want to focus. That said, if you're using it on the desktop and you want to keep the desktop components up to date, you're more than welcome to help us. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go to RIC for some questions now.
Quite a few on there.
Right, okay. Right.
Garrett had one.
Is anyone going to triage these questions for me? James, do you want to pick one?
Garrett is asking, how is OpenIndiana going to deal with bits in Oracle gates that depend on changes in OSNet that we don't receive?
Right, okay. The question was from Garrett Demore asking how we're going to deal with upstream changes from Oracle that depend on changes to the kernel and core user land that we're no longer getting access to. And the answer really there is that we're going to have to work around those issues. It will be a case of trying to do a build, seeing what breaks, reading the mailing lists, comparing the diff files to see what they've done, and then reverse engineering a solution. One classic example of this was the boot environment, BEADM, was moved from one area, one consolidation, into the OSNet consolidation. Thankfully that happened before the gate was closed. If it hadn't, then we would have had to move that ourselves or undo the change they made. But it is possible, and we will try to do it.
There's another question there. Any details regarding the roadmap, in particular the first stable release?
A roadmap currently isn't available. Really the focus is on finding out what's wrong with our current build, development build, doing a few more development builds, and then seeing what the issues are upgrading between them, and then really we'll start to get a feel for what this is going to be like moving forwards, and then we'll be able to converge on a stable release. And really we'll have reached a stable release when you can upgrade between our dev builds with very little pain, and we can start working on consolidating our bug fixes into a single place. Will there be a video available of this announcement afterwards? We will try to do that. I can't guarantee anything because this streaming setup was set up today, but we'll try. Someone's asking, will we use JDS? Will we update to GNOME 2.3, for example? I believe we are using the latest GNOME 2.3. Someone's just asked about mirrors. We're using a content delivery network, which has POPs all around the globe. So you should get a very fast download connection, whether you're in Australia or America or the UK. But mirrors would be appreciated because the CDN is not free, and that's coming out of sponsorship money that might better be spent on servers for building stuff. I've just remembered something that's worth pointing out. It's not necessarily a question. The CD is 800 megabytes. So you will need to burn it to a DVD, and we apologise about that. There just wasn't enough time to slim it down.
There's a question there. How can people get involved? Bug fixers and actually add code to your system. How can they get involved?
Okay. The question was, how can people get involved and submit patches and bug fixes and that kind of thing? The answer there really is to sign up to the mailing lists, join the Illumos website where the bug tracker is, submit bugs or feature requests, and if you feel that you can contribute to them, there will be documentation, extensive documentation on a wiki of how to build stuff, how to get involved. Just chat to people on IRC. Everyone's really friendly, and all the developers, really, I'm trying to get them to stay in IRC. And if someone comes along and goes, don't really use IRC, I'm just going to be hanging out on the mailing lists, that's okay, but that's not real participation. And with Sun, they were all behind desks in a building, not visible. And if you're on IRC, you're visible, people can talk to you, people can provoke you. I think that's key, really, to moving the project forward. We're going to have a separate development channel from OpenIndiana on IRC called OI Dev. Details of that will be put up on the website. So we'd recommend people, using that if they're interested in developing.
York Mullencamp's got a question. What will you do when Oracle opens the source after Solaris 11, like they said in the leaked memo?
Well, Oracle have already lied to us once. They said they would be releasing Open Solaris 2010 in the first half of 2010, and that didn't happen. So personally, I think it's 50-50 whether they're going to do this or not, because when the push comes to the shove, and they've just built Solaris 11, are they going to go, hey, here it is for free? Because that's quite a big commitment for them to do. And I will be incredibly pleased, and it will be a fantastic thing for the open source community if they do decide to do that. The challenge it will present is it will be a huge integration project to bring 6 months or however long the development cycle is back into Illumos and back into OpenIndiana. But we will hit that bump when we get to it. Assuming that they publish the Mercurial history, which has all the diffs, we'll be able to go right back to where they stopped and bump things up. They might not do that. We'll just have to see. I hope they do.
Someone asked about text installer.
Text installer. We don't yet have the text installer built. However, that's just a distro construct command away. So hopefully that should come within the next couple of days. The text installer really is something that we're keen to push, because it's one of the best ways to do a single server install of the operating system. The current Open Solaris CD, it boots a graphical installer, and that's not brilliant on a lot of servers. So, sorry, I'm just reading the questions and trying to speak at the same time.
I have a question, actually.
Yep.
Are you going to do a network installer as well?
Yes, the network installer is the AI automated installer project. It takes over from the old jumpstart mechanism. It's XML based. It's probably under heavy development at the moment. It is made available as an open source thing, so we will get updates to it. And yeah, that's good for doing network installs. Some people don't like it compared to jumpstart because it's missing features, but those are being addressed. So I believe now, for example, you can set a static IP address when you're doing an AI install, whereas previously you couldn't. Any JET support? No, AI and JET don't coexist. They're two different things. Someone's asked about installation profile plans. It would be great if from the installer you could do a drop down and pick what consolidations or incorporations you want to install. That's presently not possible. It's something we can investigate, but it may be a limitation of the current implementation of the distribution constructor which makes a CD. I could be completely wrong, but I have a feeling it might be difficult to implement with the current setup. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to repeat them if I haven't read them out, because IRC is scrolling really quickly. Will there be some cluster support? Personally, I don't know about that. If it runs on OpenSolaris, then hopefully it should run on OpenIndiana. If it doesn't, then it's something where we can potentially make it work. Someone's asked about Spark support. In fact, the person doing the Spark builds presently has asked about Spark support. Yes, Spark will be coming eventually. It's just a matter of time and priorities. If you can afford Spark equipment, then you can afford Solaris 11 in a way. Really, the people who need this the most are the x86 people. I would love to be rich. I think we'd all love to be rich and be able to afford Spark hardware, but most of the developers are stuck on their, MacBooks or whatever. Garrett's just reported that Lumos supports Spark on some platforms. I think I remember actually there's a bit of a problem with some Spark platforms where there's closed bits.
It's the older Spark platforms they don't support.
Yeah, the older Spark platforms someone's mentioned. So someone's mentioned EC2 support. I assume they're talking about, pre-built Amazon EC2 images. Based on the people who are currently on the team, I don't think anyone's working on that. But if you know how to build them and you're interested in doing it, then definitely that is something we would really welcome.
It'd be Zen support. Sorry? That would require Zen support.
If that, yes, the key thing to mention is that Zen support is in there. Oracle are keeping OpenSolaris available as a power virtualized guest, so you can run it in a Zen context with power virtualized drivers. Someone's asked who the speaker on the announcement is. My name's Alistair Lumsden. I work for Every City, and I'm Alasdair with 3 R's on the end on IRC. I'm also the person who kind of went, why is no one doing this? Let's do it. So. Someone's asked, how will we keep paying the bills to continue this? There aren't a huge number of bills. The servers and the hosting are the biggest cost in a way. We're providing that from Every City. I'm happy to commit to doing that as long as we can afford to do so. Various other people have offered to host this, universities and what have you. So it's not too much of an issue. And even then, you don't need a cluster build service to do this. It can be done remotely, but the issue, as always, is bandwidth and shipping things between servers. Someone was asking about the OpenSolaris users group, OpenSolaris user groups. I do have a pretty strong opinion on this because I'm standing in the election for the London OpenSolaris user group. So if you're watching this, please vote for me. My opinion basically is that Oracle have divested themselves of their user groups. They've said we do not directly do handle the user groups. It has to be done by people in the community. At least that's what we've been told here in London. So the London OpenSolaris users group has joined a separate entity, which is the UK Oracle users group, who provide a building and a venue and everything. But it's really up to the user groups to determine what goes into the presentations, what the user group's all about. And the user groups previously were welcome for all OpenSolaris-based distributions like Nexenta and Belinux and what have you. And I see this as just another OpenSolaris distribution. So I think the user groups are really going to become the Solaris and OpenSolaris user groups and friends. And we're one of the friends, really. I'd be keen to state that if you're interested in OpenIndiana and you're holding elections for your user group, stand and then support our effort within your user group. Someone's asking about clustering and the Open High Availability cluster. That might be one for someone to answer on the RSC channel because I don't know about that. Someone's asking if we'll support Spec Files Extra. Presumably the Spec Files Extra project is open source, the specs are available. Potentially, yeah, that could be something. I know very little about it. I've never been involved with that project, so I can give it a go.
Understand.
Yep.
HA cluster and Sun cluster are quite tightly tied into the kernel revision that was also been. I've started looking into HA cluster. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. I don't know any timescales. It depends what releases are pushing out and how far, if the other kernel diverges from what Oracle internally doing.
Okay.
So still seem to be pushing out HA cluster upwards. So there's clearly going to come a point where HA cluster depends on ONNB consolidation updates, which are no longer being pushed out. So that'll break it all. So it could be a bit of a dead end, but I'm hoping to have some more updates in the next couple of weeks from that. So.
Someone has in the audience has said that they're working on testing out HA cluster, and basically the key thing is that it does tie into the kernel quite heavily. So it depends how divergent a Lumos or OpenIndiana kernel gets from the Oracle mainline one. So at some point there might be a breakage point where it stops working. If that's the case, then there'll be a bit of work involved. We'll just have to see. Someone was asking, what did they say? I assume a company with a need for a solid platform for the next many years would look into Solaris. Oh no, that's Jorg replying. Someone works for a company and they're looking for a solid platform that they can trust that it will be there in the future. Yes, OpenIndiana will be there in the future. I am hoping to use OpenIndiana stable release within my company. We've got over 250 Solaris zones running with real client stuff, hosting projects for quite large websites and what have you, and advertising campaigns and all that kind of thing, where you need ultra reliability. So OpenIndiana is being built with that in mind. The biggest risk isn't that we're going to go away. The biggest risk is that we're going to lag a bit behind things. But I mean, the reception's been really, really good, and we couldn't have done this distribution when Sun were still at the helm, sort of dribbling crumbs over their little wall, saying, "Here you go," because no one really was coming and assembling something out of those crumbs, because some were also going, "Here's a bit of bread." But now we're assembling everything ourselves, and we can do it, and all the instructions are there. So I don't think we're going to go away. Any other questions? When is the wiki going to be opened up? The wiki should be opened up after the release. After I've finished talking, I'm going to start typing away, opening up the wiki and releasing the downloads and what have you. So. Someone's asking, how does he get his open source stuff into OpenIndiana? Depends what the stuff is. If it's a bit of software, then something like Spec Files Extra, maybe. There's a ports tree being worked on by a gentleman in the audience. That's going to be a really easy way for people to contribute, because you'll be able to check out the ports tree, build your port, test it, and then push up your report to a repository tree where someone will check it and then merge it back in. So yeah, it should be way easier to contribute to this project than it ever was to contribute to Open Solaris.
Garrett said, when can we see the demo already?
When can we see the demo? Okay. If anyone spots any more questions that are worth asking.
I have one quick question.
Yep.
You mentioned the ports tree. Is it going to be compatible with BSD ports tree by any chance?
Yes.
Any plans to do that?
It will be somewhat compatible with the BSD ports tree. It's using the bmake command. So I think it's the NetBSD one?
NetBSD.
NetBSD one. So I think it's more similar to the FreeBSD tree than package source for NetBSD.
Yeah, it's basically BSD mode. So they're all very similar, slightly different in terms of ports.
Okay.
You should be able to take a port from FreeBSD, change a couple of macros, and it should work. But it's still being worked on.
Yep.
What do you think about copyright assignment?
Copyright assignment. Okay, that's an interesting one. There's no blanket policy being laid down at the moment. Some stuff's can just be put down as the Illumos Foundation. So, the OpenIndiana project, Illumos Foundation, or you can put your own copyright in as well. I'm not really sure. It's not my area of expertise. We could do with someone who's really familiar with open source licensing and copyright attribution to come along and set us straight on the proper procedure there. But really, we've been frantically working really hard to get the distribution built, and the source that's gone in isn't great. A lot of it's just infrastructure and documentation and build procedures. But yeah, we do need to kind of sort things like that out. Someone's asked, is this going to be a hobby Linux project or a properly thought out project? Yeah, there are businesses involved with building this. Giant have one of the largest Solaris farms that I'm aware of. They are contributing to Lumos. They haven't spoken too publicly about what their intentions are, but one would surmise that in the future it may be something that they switch to. My business certainly wants to use this. So if every community contributor died or went away, I'd still be, at the end of the day, doing a little updates. Things might get a little bit slow. But yeah, one person at the moment can sustain this project, and we've got well over 10 to 20 of them. I'm really not worried about it. So let's roll on the demo. Everyone wants to see the demo. So the last problem with the demo was the resolution was too high, so I'm just going to reduce the video memory to something tiny. So here is the Grub boot screen. As you can see, we have customized the splash. It looks quite swanky, even if I do say so myself.
There is a logo at the bottom and you can't see it on the projector.
Oh yes, the projector in here is very, very, well, it's quite bright in the room, so you might not be able to see this.
Shall we switch off the lights?
Yeah, could someone just switch off the lights? Tom, I think you're closest. It's the ones this side of the partition. I think. Yeah. Perfect. So it's just booting. You can see that the first line used to be Sonos release. We've added a new line which says OpenIndiana build OI147, and then I moved the Sonos blurb down a line. I doubt anything depends on that. Some very helpful defaults. Might want to change the default for the country to UK. Only kidding. This will take a while to boot, so I'm just going to go back and see if anyone has any questions. I love the logo, someone said. Cool. Someone's asking if OpenIndiana has SSD trim support. The answer is kind of. There is one bit of it done, the first half, which is the SATA driver. That supports trim support. The bit that doesn't support trim support is ZFS. It doesn't know yet how to tell the SATA driver how to trim stuff. We'll see. Someone said I have a busy dock. Yes. Someone's asking if apt-get could be an approach that we could use. The answer there is no, absolutely not. IPS is fundamental to the success of Solaris, really. It does an awful lot that other package managers don't do so well. And I know that sounds crazy to people who have used IPS a little bit and found it a pain, but it's really stringent on making sure everything's perfect before doing updates. So one of the benefits there is that for patching and for keeping your operating system up to date, it just works really, really well. It's quite nice. It's really network oriented. There's some features missing, but really in time you'll come to love IPS. It's going to take 10 years until you get over this, I know, but Solaris 11 is going this way. For us to remain package compatible with them, we'll have to use it, but also, we want to use it. I obviously didn't make the video memory small enough. Can I scale this? That's the question. Does anyone know if it's possible to scale this? I'm going to guess no. So we're about to see the first blooper, which is a little embarrassing, and we will put out an update to address this. The issue is that the icon in the top left-hand corner is the original Open Solaris one. A new one was designed and is in the source tree, but presumably we've edited the wrong file somewhere. So it's your regular Solaris desktop. There is an icon in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Oops. Which I will go to. Which can be seen there. It's cut off. We didn't have time to test the graphics and the artwork, as you can see, before getting this thing built. That's how close to the wire we were with this release. But stuff like that's trivial to fix. And we have, it's worth pointing out, been running our previous build, which was unbranded, still had the Sun branding, for over a month. We were running OI 146 in production, kind of, running the OpenIndiana stuff. So the OpenIndiana package servers, the download sites, various things like that are all running OI 146 or OI 147. So, it is pretty robust, and a lot of the stuff that you'll see and complain about is just going to be cosmetic stuff that is easily addressed. So I'm going to fire up the installer. You can see that getting started with OpenIndiana, the icon at least, is customized. Don't dare open it. Here's the installer screen, also customized with the logo and the text being customized. Pick a hard drive, pick your time zone, pick your country, type in stuff. It's the installer. So I think that pretty much covers it. Does anyone want to see anything in particular to show the uname /a app? I don't know if you can read this on the stream, but it says Sonos Open Solaris. Interesting.
Yeah, the hostname didn't get fixed.
Hostname didn't get fixed, but that will get fixed for the next release.
The default hostname in the installer is correct. So if you go back to your install screen, the default computer name is correct.
So the default computer name has just been mentioned in the installer is correct. So if you install this, it should stick OpenIndiana in as the host name. A little bit of customization has fallen by the wayside there, but we'll get there. It's just a case of didn't have time to test it. Someone wants to see OpenIndiana about. So about OpenIndiana. And this at least works. So it's copyright the OpenIndiana project. Has a logo.
Title bar.
Title bar said welcome to us. What can I say? second or third time lucky. And I'll just fire up Firefox and check, see what the getting started thing looks like. This might not have been customized. When I did the customization for the installer, and I didn't customize the documentation. So the documentation there is the OpenSlar stuff. Again, that's trivial enough to fix. Any other questions? BP rewrite, that's block pointer rewriting within ZFS. That's a big project, Garrett's just said. They're working at it probably over at Solaris Towers. We'd have to re-implement it, or Lumos would have to re-implement it. Might be the kind of thing where we can just wait for them to do their Solaris 11 release and then we backport it. Duplicating something as big as block pointer rewriting wouldn't make sense, really. Someone's just compared it to Duke Nukem Forever. So, does anyone have any final questions before I wrap up? Okay, well the next thing then is the downloads. And whilst you're on the screen, I'm going to SSH into the server where the downloads are. My internet works. This is the nice thing about being a community project, is you can get involved with this stuff rather than just watching it from afar. Downloads are now open. The path to download stuff, I'm going to put it on the download page. You can see we've got a WordPress blog set up. If you want to maintain our website, message me. While I've got you here, I'm just going to update the link so that you can all see it. And then we'll adjourn.
I didn't get the chance to ask, but bounties and so forth. Have you got any plans for bounties?
Someone's asking about bounties. We don't have any bounties set up yet. I don't know where the pot of money would come from to do that, but potentially, that's not going to be an issue. Hopefully, with things like Google Summer of Code, might be able to get in there. My company might be able to put some out. Joint might be able to put some out.
Well, the reason I ask is we've got sort of a certain pot towards a BSD ports bounty, so that's something quite important for us.
This man might get the money.
It actually needs to work flawlessly.
Flawlessly, well, that's
as close to with software as you know.
It certainly works for system file packages at the moment. IPS porting to ports is being done.
The difficulty is that with the ports tree, stuff like FFmpeg and what have you barely compiles on Linux. Getting it to compile, it's basically getting all the ports to compile and work is the tricky bit. So we haven't copied, or James hasn't copied the whole ports tree over and is fixing it. Ports are individually being put in, I believe. That way, it'll work. So where's the downloads page? Must be on page 2. Download. I'm just going to do a very quick link here. dlc.openindiana.org. We also have a package server available and full instructions on how to update to this will be provided. It's pretty straightforward. I've just updated that page, so if you refresh the downloads page in your browser, you should be able to see that. Does anyone with a laptop want to check that? Yeah. Downloading, perfect. People are downloading it. Brilliant. Perfect. Someone's asking, is the targeted build system Sun Studio? Yes, at the moment. Some of the stuff builds with GCC, and the kernel currently shadow compiles. So it compiles against Sun Studio, and it also compiles against GCC to make sure everything works. But yeah, the GCC kernel doesn't boot. So, and that's it. I think it's getting quite late, so we probably should start wrapping up. Thank you very much.
And you'll be the mic.
Clapping. Thank you very much, and do contribute. Just leave the VirtualBox image up for people to ignore.